What's going on, everybody? Dan the Ultra Dad here again. Hope you're doing well. Man, we have a lot to talk about. Look at this baby right here. Mohican 100. Just got back from the race about a week ago, and I've got lots and lots of thoughts about the race. So excited to share with you the adventure that I had. I'm sure a lot of you have kind of been wondering, where's Dan? Where's Ultra Dad? Well, we'll get into that too. But hang in there and let's talk Mohican 100 2023 edition. Hey everybody, welcome back once again. Dan the Ultra Dad here. Hope you're doing well, man. Hope your summer is treating you right. I'm having a great time. I really am. All right, so let's get right into it. Mohican 100 2023. We got lots of thoughts. I want to tell you all about it. First of all, just so you know, this is not a race video. There is going to be a race video. I have lots of footage, so I'm very excited to share that with you here in the next week or two, hopefully. This is kind of a race debrief, just to kind of let you know how it went, give you some details, and just share with you my experience at the Mohican 100 2023. From the very beginning, as you know, if you've been following any of my videos running up to the race, you know that my training it's been a struggle for the past 6 months, just to really train a lot. Work's been busy, personal life's been busy, everything's been busy. So you know how it is. There's always excuses, but basically, bottom line is, I was a little bit undertrained coming into the Mohican 100. Now, not completely untrained. I'd say in March, I got 4 or 5 weeks in a row of solid long runs on the weekends, so that was good. And then I did get a decent 22-mile run in about a month ago. So maybe 3 weeks ago. So, not untrained, just maybe a little undertrained. And so I wanted to share with you kind of how that translated to the Mohican 100. Basically, right up to the race, for the past couple weeks, I had been thinking maybe I would drop down to the 50-miler. And I can't remember if I shared that with you or not, but that's true. That's the fact of the matter. Just because of the lack of training and because I had not finished. I had DNF'd last year, which, it's kind of I don't know if it's a pride thing, but certainly is a pride thing, kind of an ego thing. I didn't want to look stupid not being able to finish the 100 when obviously I haven't trained a ton for this race. So, I was debating back and forth, and ultimately I decided to run the 100-miler. All right, so over here at check-in, a lot of people, as usual, a lot of fun. So I was really close to backing down to the 50-miler, and in fact, it was almost a game-time decision until just a few minutes ago. And what I decided to do was go for the 100-miler, baby. There is no way that I could let this opportunity pass. So as you can see there, that was literally at the finish, or at the start-finish line at the race briefing the night before on Friday. So it came up to that moment. I had gone back and forth. Quite frankly, I think my family wanted me to do the 50 because they were a little bit concerned for me. But I decided instead to do the 100-miler. And I think the main reason is, you only live once. Life is short. I signed up for the 100-mile Mohican, and with my brother and my family was there. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to back down. I'm going to have a little courage and jump into the 100-miler. I had finished it twice, and so I knew that I could do it. I just needed to solve a few problems along the way, as there always are problems in 100-milers, but I knew I could do it. So that's what I did. I decided to go for the 100-miler, and it was exciting just to be able to kind of put that behind me and make that decision. So let's talk more details about how the race went. Let's see. The night before, I got to bed about 11 p.m., so kind of late, actually, for a 5 a.m. start. But that's all right. My family was there. We were having a good time back at the camper. And then I woke up, actually, it wasn't 5 a.m., that's the start. Woke up at 3:45, I believe, and I met my brother at 4:30 outside of our camper, and we walked down to the start line. If you've ever been to the Mohican 100, there's a wonderful campground, just an awesome. It's a privately run campground, so it's very, very nice, well maintained, and so that's where we've stayed the past few years. So we went down to the start line, and didn't have a whole lot of time to hang out, just a few minutes, and off we went. So the start, it was kind of weird because other races, I felt like the start kind of there was a build up to that start, and it's very, like dramatic and exciting. This just kind of happened. I don't know if it's because I was tired. I don't know why it felt that way, but it just kind of felt like anticlimactic, I guess. So we started, and it's dark at that point. We went at a good pace, I'd say, all the way to the first aid station. I'd say that first aid station felt like it came a lot quicker than in years past. By the time we got to the gorge overlook, you could start to see dawn. The sun had started to come up, and we were moving well. I guess we should just take a step back. If you haven't seen my prior videos or you don't know much about the Mohican 100, the Mohican 100 is a loop course. Not too many, though. It's nice. It's 4 loops, so 4 marathon loops, essentially, except with a twist. The first 2 loops are 27 miles each, and then they actually cut the second 2 loops short a bit, 23 miles-ish per loop. So it's kind of nice. You get those 2 27-mile loops out of the way, and then the final 2 loops, theoretically seem a little bit easier. So anyway, the first loop went very well. It went smoothly, no issues. We came cruising in. I believe it was faster, a little bit faster than last year's time, which I have to pause and talk about that for a minute. So last year I DNF'd, and I thought, if you watched my post-race videos, part of what I thought was maybe I still wasn't going slow enough. Because it's kind of a common phrase people say with 100-mile races: start slow and get even slower, and slow down even more. Well, that was last year. I felt like maybe, even though we were going pretty slow, I think the first 27-mile loop we did in, I believe it was 7.5 hours ish. I thought maybe we should go even slower. Well, this year we actually went faster, and I felt good. I felt fine. I was tired, and Will and I had been running together that entire loop. We both felt like we were getting sore at that point. Just the typical soreness that you get after running 27 miles. But overall, no worse for wear, and ready to move on to the second loop. So our family was there at the end of the first loop. That was nice. Just like last year, they took good care of us, gave us what we needed. It was very crowded there. I'd say it seemed a little bit more crowded there at that aid station at the end of the first loop than last year. So we kind of found a spot down a little hill, and had a couple chairs set up for us, which was great. We had some little freezy pop ice cream things, which were awesome. Got a little light lunch, but we didn't stay long. We probably stayed there for about 20 minutes and then headed out for our second loop. So the second loop started great. It was starting to get pretty hot. So I think, if it was 7.5 hour, if it was a 6.5 hour loop, it was probably around 11:30 when we got into that main aid station there at the end of that first loop. But it was getting warmer, but that second loop was really hot. The sun was beating down on us at times. The temperature itself wasn't terrible. I think it was upper 80s, which is warm. The humidity wasn't terrible either. But just whenever we were in the sun, it definitely had an impact on us, and it would just kind of suck the life out of you. It would make you, definitely tired me out. And when you're going from mile 27 to mile 54, that's a pretty challenging time. So one more thing I forgot to mention, which was very, very cool. My daughter was able to pace me at the beginning of the second loop for about 4 or 5 miles. Kind of unofficially, but we had a great time. She was just kind of hiking with us, and that was very, very special to me. She's very encouraging to me. just kind of pumping me up and getting me excited about trying to finish the race. It was just awesome. So thank you, Audrey, for joining. We got through that second loop. Again, no injuries, no issues, which was awesome, and very happy with how that went. We saw the family in the middle of that loop at the dam. There's a huge dam there, kind of on a reservoir, and so we met them there. We were a little earlier than they anticipated, so we waited a couple minutes. It really wasn't bad. It was 5-10 minutes, and they met us there at the dam, and kind of refreshed us a bit. We got one of the things that they did for us, which was awesome during the race, was they gave us these packs of ice in basically a Ziploc bag full of ice, and they would just put it in the back of our pack. And a couple times it was truly in a Ziploc. A couple times it was in more of like a grocery bag that was open. So as the ice melted, it would actually, the water would come out of the bag and really refresh your back. And that helped a lot, I will say. Helped me a ton, and helped me feel a lot cooler than I would, I think, otherwise. So that was great. The ice packs that we got, and then they also, one of the things we learned from last year were these Freezy Pop things, the ice cream, Freezy Pops. I don't know. You'll see them in the video, but they were great. They were so refreshing, cold, and they tasted great. Gave us some sugar, gave us some electrolytes. So we had those pretty much throughout the race. Highly recommend if you're crewing somebody to use these little ice cream treats. They were really, really nice. So after the dam, we only spent probably 10 or 15 minutes there. We went on down to the covered bridge aid station, and because we had spent a good deal of time at the dam, we decided to go pretty much right on through that aid station. Didn't stop long at all, just enough time to grab some more fluids, get some more water, and grab a couple watermelon slices. That's one thing I ate quite a bit of this year, were watermelon slices. It helped a lot. It was really light on the stomach, and it felt really good and tasted good too. A little bit of calories, probably not enough though. So I did try to eat other things. I had some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and things like that. So anyway, kept going through. We went through the covered bridge aid station. And after the covered bridge aid station, I'd say on loop 2, and this happened last year as well. You really have to recognize and respect the vertical gain for this race. These hills are very challenging, especially after the covered bridge aid station. It's just, there's some really steep hills, and they're not mountains. If you're a mountain 100-miler, we're not talking about mountains here, not talking about thousands of feet, but they are very significant climbs. And man, tell you what, as you approach midway through a 100-miler, I just realized how tough some of these hills were going up out of the covered bridge aid station. So we get through. Now, the nice thing is once you get up to the top, it does flatten out a bit for a little while, and that was always nice. But some of these hills are just, it's not just the overall gain, it's the hill itself is very, very steep. The grade of the hill is very steep. And so it can be kind of demoralizing when you're about halfway through a 100-miler and you're barely able to take a step forward because it's just so steep. So anyway, after the covered bridge aid station and the big hills after that, we kept going, and we finished that second loop, which was really, really amazing to me. Because again, I had failed to finish last year, and I thought that I had been going too fast. I'd started to have a little bit of nausea going into that point of the race, which became kind of nagged me and bothered me for the next, marathon of the race. So the next loop. I think one of the big things that I did, and that I learned between loop 2 and 3, as I started to get kind of nauseous because of the heat, I think one of the things that helped me a lot was the moment I started feeling nausea, the moment I did not want to eat, I made sure at that next aid station that I ate something. So I would grab 2 or 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, not whole sandwiches, but quarters. They cut them into quarters. And that really, really helped with getting through that nausea. The nausea it stayed around though. It stuck around, still bothered me for quite some time. I would say basically the better part of the third loop, and probably the first half of the fourth loop. So for probably a good 10 hours, I had pretty significant nausea, but nothing that, I think it didn't get too bad because, again, I started really forcing the calories the moment I started feeling it. Instead of last year, when I started feeling nauseous, I let myself shut down. Even though I knew that was not the right call, I let myself shut down from a calorie standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint. And what I mean by shut down, I let myself not eat, thinking, well, I'll just let it go. I just won't eat because I don't want to eat. Well, big mistake when you're only 15 hours into a 30-hour challenge. So this time I didn't do that. I made sure I ate. And another thing that I did was, I think last year I felt like if I eat, I need to eat a bunch, right? I was thinking I need to eat a lot right now. Well, that was kind of overwhelming mentally because that's the last thing I wanted to do. So this year, instead of doing that, I thought, well, instead of doing that, I'm just going to eat what I can. So for example, at the end of I think we're about at the end of the second loop. At the end of the second loop, we went back to our family's camper, and that was really nice. That was a good mental boost because everyone's there. They're willing to help. My wife, my kids, my parents. Will was with me. We stayed together to that point. And they had hot dogs and all kinds of food, ramen noodles, stuff for us to eat there. We got to sit down, and it was just, again, it's a good mental boost at that point, but also refreshing physically too. But, last year, for example, I didn't want to eat at all. If you watch my video from last year, I didn't eat. And that really doomed my race at that point. Because I knew I needed to eat a lot, and I let that get in the way from eating something. So this year, for example, I had like maybe half a hot dog. I had a couple bites of ramen noodles. I basically just nibbled on stuff, but that helped get me through the race, and it gave me just enough calories to make it through, instead of just completely giving up on the idea and thinking somehow I was going to go another 15 hours without any calories, which just won't work. So end of the second loop, we had a great time with the family. We stopped it was probably only about a half hour, 40 minutes. That's another thing that I learned this year was don't spend too much time at the aid stations. No, especially with the family there and everything, it was tempting to stay longer. In the past, I've stayed like an hour, and that just doesn't work for me. So we stayed about 30 minutes, and we took off after that second loop and began the second half of our race. Now, the second half of the race, a lot of it was in the dark. So at that point, it was starting to get dark. We got our headlamps out, and that began the next, 8 hours in the dark on the Mohican 100 course. So everything was great. The one thing I will say about that period of time, two things. One, it was fun that I was able to talk to several runners quite a bit, and that really helped me get through the night. We had a great time just kind of keeping up, talking about random things, talking about ultra marathons, talking about YouTube, stuff like that. Of course, Will was there as well, and that was really nice. Just had a great time chatting with a bunch of people, and that helped me get through the night for sure. The other thing was, I needed to do something to keep my mind busy because there were a number of times where I kind of felt like I was half asleep on the trail. I would kind of forget what happened over the past like 5-10 minutes. It just became so kind of monotonous, shuffling on the trail. And with the headlamp, it really gave you kind of tunnel vision. I felt like everything was the same. And I started to hallucinate a little bit too. Some of the roots that would come across the trail, I started to think that maybe they were snakes because they kind of looked like them, I guess. And so anyway, that was definitely interesting as well. But, we got through that time. We got through it. And again, I just tried to continue to eat when I could at the various aid stations. And before I knew it, dawn was approaching. The sun was starting to come up, was starting to get light again. And then I should mention at one point on the third loop. So again, this is between mile 54 and 70, 78 ish. At Hickory Ridge, which is kind of towards the end of the third loop, I basically decided I was gonna probably hurt myself if I didn't lay down or just sit down for a few minutes. So I talked to one of the aid station captains and I said, do you have like a tarp or something I could just lay down in the dirt and take a trail nap? And sure enough, he had something. So he put it just directly on the dirt behind his truck, and I laid down for 5 minutes. I don't think I fell asleep for those 5 minutes. I set my alarm on my phone to make sure I didn't sleep long. But just laying down for those 5 minutes, I think it was 5, maybe it was 10, it did me just wonders as far as trying to keep my head straight and stop, feeling like I was falling asleep on the trail. So that was huge. Power nap, got the power nap in. And then when I woke up and headed on down, that was the last aid station of the third loop. At that point, I felt energized. I felt really good, and so good that I went ahead and called my wife. I told her, because the plan was after the third loop to go back to my family's camper, again, recharge, resupply, and use that as our aid station. But this time around, I decided, nope, I'm not going to do that. Because I thought, if I do that, there's a really good chance that I'll find an excuse to quit the race, and maybe I won't get up again. So I said to my wife, I'm just going to go on through at the end of the third loop, start my fourth loop, and I thought that was probably the best choice for me. So sure enough, we get back to the main race headquarters, which is at the end of each loop. And I just had a couple pieces of watermelon, a couple snacks, got more water, and headed on for my fourth loop. So I think in the end, that's probably the most important decision I made during this race, that and forcing myself to eat something at each aid station. So the fourth loop went very well, a little slower. Again, those loops were about 23 miles. But I constantly was checking my time. I was paranoid that I was going to run out of time. But as we got through about halfway through that loop, I realized that I was going to be okay as long as nothing major happened. So at some point, I'd say and I should mention, at some point during the third loop, so rewind just a little bit. During the night, my brother did decide to go on his own. He was feeling okay. He was having some IT band issues. He actually felt a little more comfortable moving, a little faster than I was. He said it actually felt better jogging a little bit rather than walking. So that's what he did. And he went on. And so at this point, for the end of the third loop and the fourth loop, I was alone. But I really wasn't alone, because I had a bunch of friends that I kept going back and forth, seeing and talking to. I'd pass, a half dozen people, then they would pass me when I had decided to start walking again. So you know how it is with these 100-milers. You just need to be friendly with everybody, and almost always people are, interested in talking to you because they're in the same boat. They want to finish too, and they know that it goes by a lot faster and it's a lot more fun if you're friendly with people. So that's what I did the fourth loop. It was during the morning, of course. So probably roughly between about 4 a.m. to noon or so. Maybe it was 3 a.m. to noon, and everything went fine. No injuries, until the last mile of the race. I did roll my ankle, shockingly, at like mile 99. We were power hiking almost the entire fourth loop, but we decided that at that point to start jogging it in to try to, just to get it over with, to be honest. I didn't injure myself really. Just it was kind of a close call. So anyway, end of the race, it was very exciting. I was able to, you come down to the end of the loop and then you go under the highway right there, across a creek, and then you go to the main race headquarters. And man, it was just felt so good. My whole family was there. They were watching. They were excited to see me finish. I think everybody was a little bit surprised I was finishing, just because, I was so uncertain about whether I would do the 50 or the 100. And I was pretty open with people about the fact that I felt like I hadn't gotten in, all the training that I wanted to. But, it was awesome. It was a great way to end my race. Finished, ran across the finish line. My kids ran with me, both my son Calvin and my daughter Audrey. They ran the last couple hundred yards with me, which was awesome, and it just felt so good to finish the race. But thanks again to all of my family for supporting me and running with me. Of course, my parents, my wife, and my kids. My wife, very gracious to come out and just hang out during this race, especially after last year not going so well and kind of being frustrating because, it was just a lot of drama with me not finishing. But this year, I think it went much better. Obviously, I was able to finish the race, and I'm just so grateful to my family, to my wife for letting me do that, and just being there with me to support me. And my parents as well, because I know that it's been hard for them to see in the past me go through painful times during these races. And so thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for joining me for this adventure. And then finally, of course, my brother, Will. Thank you so much, bud, for hanging out and doing so well. He finished very well. He finished several hours before I did, which is pretty awesome, pretty amazing, if you ask me. He did a great job. And then I finished about mile. I finished not mile. I finished at 30 hours and 33 minutes or so. I think was my time. 30 hours, 30 something minutes. So plenty of time. The cutoff's 32 hours. I wasn't trying to win anything here. Obviously, I was just trying to finish, and I am very, very happy that I was able to finish the race, and very excited to be able to kind of put this race behind me for this year. But at the same time, it's just very fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you to all of you out there who made it such an enjoyable race. I got to know so many people. Thank you for joining me. I hope you get a chance to see this video on YouTube, and hopefully we get a chance to run together soon on the trails in the future. So anyway, that is my race recap for the 2023 Mohican 100. I know this was a very long video. It was so long, in fact, that I used up my entire memory card on my camera. So I had to kind of pause it in the middle and make some room. But once again, thanks for following my channel. I really enjoy putting this content out there when I can. And don't forget, there will be a video of the entire race, a race video that'll come out hopefully in the next week or two. And I'm very excited to share that with you as well. So hope your training's going well. Hope your 100 milers are going well. And your ultra marathons this season. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. And thanks again for following along. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the channel or give me a like, thumbs up on this video, that would be much appreciated as well. All right. Have a great day, and we will catch you in the next one. Oh, one more thing. I forgot to show you the buckle. So there's my Mohican 100 2023 edition buckle. They all look the same. So, but I now have 3. So that's pretty exciting. 3 buckles, 3 races, 3 finishes. I've actually tried 4 times. So the Mohican 100 has definitely been a big part of my ultra running experience. And I really, really like this race. If you haven't had a chance to run the Mohican 100, highly, highly recommend it. Again, it's not a rugged mountain race like they have out west, but man, it is a tough one. A lot of vertical gain, a lot of big hills, and it's a Western States qualifier. So I'm officially a Western States 100 qualified applicant. So I'll be applying next year for the Western States 100. Probably take 10 years to get in, but hey, anyway. So I got my 3 buckles. Pretty excited. It's kind of been a big thing for me to try to get the 3rd race done. 3 finishes at the Mohican 100. And I'll definitely be running it again. Not sure about next year. Will and I are starting to think about other options for other potential races to try to tackle. The first of which is coming up here in a couple months, the Never Summer 100K. Very, very excited about that race. So out in Colorado, So excited to run the Never Summer 100K, and just can't wait to share that with you as well. All right, as a little postscript, we'll talk to you later. See ya.